Question 12. Rationalize the denominator and simplify fully this fraction here. The fact that we have two terms in our denominator makes this more complicated for rationalizing. In order to rationalize the denominator with two terms, we need to multiply by what's known as its conjugate pair. It's the same two terms, but with a different sign in between. So with us having an adding sum in between, we're going to have a takeaway sum in between. The reason for this is because we want to create a difference of two squares on the bottom of that fraction, which is what's going to end up with us losing all of our roots. Now I'm going to show this the first way that I'm doing right now, because I've just jumped in and decided to rationalize the denominator here. But technically that root a can be simplified. So the first option I'm going to show here is rationalizing the denominator first, and then the next step, or the next option I'll show, will involve simplifying the surd first. It doesn't matter which way you do it, as you're going to see we'll end up with the same answer. Top of this fraction, we're going to have 6 2's for 12 and 6 negative root 8's for a negative 6 root 8. On the bottom, we're going to get a difference of two squares here. We have 2 times 2 for 4. We have a 2 times minus root 8 and a 2 times positive root 8, which is going to give us our two middle terms here, which will cancel. If you choose to not even bother writing those down, that's totally fine. You have a root 8 times a negative root 8 here for a takeaway 8. So when you set up your rationalizing a denominator for two terms, you know you're going to end up with a difference of two squares. You don't technically have to express these two middle terms if you already know exactly what's going to happen. As long as you end up with the 4 takeaway 8 on the bottom, being careful with the negatives to give us a minus 4, then we'll be okay. On the top, now's the time to simplify our root 8, or root 8 being a root 4 times root 2, which is stuck to a 6, or multiplying a 6. That root 4 is then going to turn into a 2, and our negative 6 times 2 is going to give us a negative 12, stuck to that root 2, all over minus 4, all divided by minus 4. As it stands, we have numbers here that can be divided by minus 4 straight away, so you could just jump to our final answer. I'm just going to officially show why that works. It's because when we take 4 out as a common factor, we can then cancel these 4s, we can then do our division. Thing is, we can't just cancel them without dealing with that negative, because you never want to leave a fraction with a negative on the bottom. So when we cancel, first of all, that'll deal with the 4s, meaning that our answer is going to involve 3's here. But when we divide by a negative, it's going to change the sign of each of these. So that 3 becomes a minus 3, and the minus 3 root 2 becomes a plus 3 root 2. If we dealt with simplifying the surd first, we would have I'll put this in pink again. No, highlight it in pink. We could have this as root 4 root 2 before we've even begun, like so, which is the same as a 6 over 2 plus 2 root 2. And then from here, rationalizing the denominator, we're going to do exactly the same thing. We multiply by the conjugate pair. So here, we're multiplying top and bottom by a 2 minus 2 root 2. After which our numerator is exactly the same, or it is exactly the same as what we ended up with here. And in our denominator, when we break all of this out, we have our 4, we end up with a plus and minus 4 root 2, which is going to cancel. So I'll just write that here and here. Again, if you didn't want to show that because you know exactly what's going to happen, that's totally fine. And then a 2 root 2 times a negative 2 root 2 is going to give us a 4 and a 2 when we multiply these things together. Of course, you could just use your calculator as well, but just showing how you could do this without a calculator. You end up with those being multiplied together, giving us a negative 8, which is exactly the same thing as we had up here. From there then, our next step to simplifying is to go across to this, after which again, when you're dividing by negative 4, you just got to make sure you're changing the signs of the terms. Positives to negatives and negatives to positives. Done.